Welcome to my YouTube channel. Please subscribe my YouTube channel. Police say the man was hellbent on creating carnage as he plowed his white vehicle into revelers celebrating the new year. Mayor Latoya Cantrell says the city has been impacted by a terrorist attack and urged residents to avoid the area. The perpetrator drove his pickup truck down Bourbon Street at a very fast pace and was trying to run over as many people as he possibly could, Police Superintendent Kirkpatrick said. She said despite more than 300 officers being deployed in the city last night, the driver was intentional and swerved around barricades to get to crowds. He then opened fire with an assault rifle and shot two police officers, who have been rushed to hospital. A man who witnessed the horror in the city's popular French Quarter at around 3:15 a.m. local time, 9:15 a.m. Greenwich Mean Time, said he saw an SUV speeding and running people over. So far 10 people have been confirmed dead and at least a further 35 have been injured. The suspect is believed to be dead, a law enforcement official has told NBC News. Police have handed the investigation over to the FBI, who said improvised explosive devices had been found in the area. The assistant special agent in charge, Aletha Duncan, said this is not a terrorist event, despite the mayor's comment. She added, "We are working on confirming if this is a viable device or not." Footage shared on social media shows chaotic scenes, with gunfire heard in the background and people seen running from the area. Another witness, Whit Davis, said people started running and hiding under tables. He told BBC, "We had been on and around Bourbon Street since the beginning of the evening. When we were in the bar we didn't hear shooting or crashes because the music was so loud." Mr. Davis said they were held in the bar by cops before being escorted out. He said he was horrified to see dead and injured bodies all over the street. Nola Reddy, the City of New Orleans department responsible for emergency preparedness, posted on X, "There has been a mass casualty incident on Canal and Bourbon Street. Get yourself away from the area." Bourbon Street, a well-known nightlife and tourist spot, has been shut down while cops investigate. The incident came just hours before the city's annual All-State Sugar Bowl college American football game was due to be held. It is understood thousands of people were due to attend the game and celebrate the new year. The city's police department had said a further 300 officers would be drafted in, along with NOLA troopers. Louisiana Governor Jeff Landry said he is praying for all the victims. He wrote on X, "A horrific act of violence took place on Bourbon Street earlier this morning. Please join Sharon and I in praying for all the victims and first responders on scene. I urge all near the scene to avoid the area." It comes days after 5 were killed and a further 205 injured after a doctor drove his car into crowds at a German Christmas market. A child of 9 was among the dead after Talib al-Abdulmohsen, 50, plowed his BMW into revelers at the crowded market in the city of Magdeburg on December 20. A mother of 3 and an elderly couple were also among those killed. New Orleans was alive that evening. The lively streets buzzed with the harmonious chaos of jazz melodies, laughter, and the chatter of tourists and locals alike. French Quarter balconies draped with vibrant Mardi Gras beads overlooked crowds savoring the electrifying pulse of the city. This was a place that thrived on celebration, a refuge for joy seekers, dreamers, and wanderers. But amidst the clinking glasses and cheerful parade of street performers, a shadow loomed. Samira Jones, a journalist for a local newspaper, was strolling through the chaos, her notepad in hand. She had been sent to cover a new fusion jazz band making waves in the quarter. It was the kind of assignment she loved, a chance to immerse herself in the heartbeat of New Orleans. She had just finished jotting down an anecdote about a street saxophonist when she felt it. The air changed. There was a moment of disquiet, an unexplainable stillness. Samira glanced down Bourbon Street and noticed a large truck idling in the distance. It seemed out of place. Most vehicles avoided the crowded thoroughfare during peak hours. A chill rippled through her as the engine roared to life and the truck accelerated. It happened so fast. The truck plowed into the unsuspecting crowd, sending people scrambling in all directions. The sound of metal against flesh was deafening, punctuated by screams that rose like a tragic symphony. Samira dropped her notepad, her instinct screaming for her to move, but she was frozen, paralyzed by the horrifying sight unfolding before her. The truck came to an abrupt halt after crashing into a lamppost. For a moment, the silence was louder than the chaos that had preceded it. Then the driver emerged, brandishing a semi-automatic rifle. Panic turned into sheer terror. The survivors. 10 lives were lost in those first few moments, and dozens more were injured. Among the survivors was Malik, a street performer who had been juggling fire torches when the truck barreled toward him. His quick reflexes saved him, but the image of his best friend crushed under the vehicle would haunt him forever. Claire, a nurse on vacation from Seattle, had been standing by a food cart when she saw the truck approaching. She later recounted how she instinctively grabbed a child standing nearby and dove into an alley, narrowly avoiding the oncoming vehicle. The child's mother was not as lucky. Father Anthony, a local priest, had been blessing a small group of parishioners near St. Louis Cathedral. He stayed behind to help a wounded man even as the gunfire erupted. "I couldn't leave him," he would later tell reporters, his voice trembling. In moments like that, you don't think, you act. The heroes. The sound of sirens finally pierced the night, heralding the arrival of law enforcement. Officer Rebecca Lane was one of the first responders on the scene. A 10-year veteran of the NOPD, she was no stranger to the city's darker moments, but this was unlike anything she had ever encountered. She immediately coordinated a perimeter around the chaos while instructing her team to evacuate civilians. Her partner, Officer Miguel Santos, spotted the gunman heading toward a nearby bar and pursued him. Miguel knew every corner of the quarter, and it gave him an edge. He managed to corner the assailant in a narrow alley, exchanging gunfire before backup arrived. Meanwhile, EMTs like Rachel Kim worked tirelessly to triage the wounded. She vividly remembered treating an elderly woman who clutched Mardi Gras beads in one hand and a rosary in the other. "Keep praying," Rachel whispered to her, tears stinging her eyes as she applied pressure to the woman's wounds. The aftermath. In the days following the attack, New Orleans struggled to process its grief. Memorials sprang up across the French Quarter, candles, flowers, and handwritten notes lining the sidewalks where the bloodstains had barely dried. Samira, shaken but alive, turned her attention to covering the stories of the victims and the survivors. Her articles painted a vivid portrait of those lost and the resilience of those left behind. One piece, titled "The Last Song of the Saxophonist," paid tribute to Malik's fallen friend. Another, "The Courage of Claire," celebrated the nurse who had saved a child at great personal risk. The city mourned collectively. Jazz bands played slow, mournful tunes during funerals, their music echoing a shared pain. Vigils filled Jackson Square, where people gathered to light candles and hold hands, their voices uniting in solemn hymns, but as the days turned into weeks, resilience began to take root. Reclaiming the spirit. The French Quarter was quieter for a time, but it never stayed silent for long. New Orleans had weathered storms before, both literal and figurative, and this attack would not rob it of its soul. The community banded together to support the victims' families, raising funds through concerts and art auctions. Malik, despite his trauma, returned to the streets with his fire torches. "This city gave me everything," he said in a television interview. "And I refuse to let fear take that away." Claire extended her stay in New Orleans, volunteering at local clinics and becoming a part of the community she had once visited as a tourist. "I came here for a vacation," she said, "but I stayed because this city has a heart like no other." Father Anthony organized a special service at St. Louis Cathedral, inviting people of all faiths to come together. "The darkness tried to consume us," he preached, "but our light is stronger." Samira's articles caught national attention, earning her awards and recognition. But for her, the most meaningful feedback came from the families of the victims. You gave us a voice, one mother told her, tears streaming down her face. The suspect. As details about the suspect emerged, the city grappled with the uncomfortable truths of the motivations behind the attack. A 32-year-old man with a history of extremist ties, his actions were fueled by hatred and a desire to sow division. But if his goal was to break New Orleans, he failed spectacularly. The trial became a media circus, but the people of New Orleans refused to let it define them. Instead, they focused on rebuilding, on healing, and on celebrating life in the face of adversity. 6 months after the attack, the French Quarter held a festival unlike any other. It wasn't Mardi Gras or Jazz Fest, it was something new, a celebration born out of tragedy. Dubbed the Festival of Resilience, it honored the victims while showcasing the indomitable spirit of the city. Mallet performed on the main stage, his fire torches dancing in defiance of the darkness. Claire stood in the crowd, holding hands with the child she had saved, who now called her Auntie. Father Anthony gave the opening prayer, and Officer Rebecca Lane received an award for her bravery. Samira covered the event with her usual flair, her words capturing the essence of the evening. In the face of unimaginable loss, New Orleans chose to rise. Tonight, the streets are filled with music, laughter, and the unmistakable spirit of a city that will never be silenced. The shadows came, but the light won. And as the festival stretched into the night, the streets of New Orleans came alive once more, proving that even in the darkest moments, joy and resilience would always find a way. This story, though fictionalized, highlights the resilience of a community in the face of terror. It shows how individuals, despite their fear and loss, can rise to become heroes, and how a city can unite to overcome even the most harrowing events.